Hey, everybody. Welcome back to our semi-monthly, bi-monthly, whatever you want to call it, our occasional boring nerd letter talk. I am Paul Moderman, one of the Boring Enterprise nerds. With me is the amazing, awesome Yelena Perfilieva. Say hi,
Hello.
Yelena.
Hi, everyone.
And what we do is we just rap about what we're going to write about. And because we're just paying attention to stuff and thinking about cool things. So we're going to share that with you guys. So please, Yelena, start us off. Let's talk.
Yep. Yep. Let's do this. All right. So let me share my screen. As usual, we each have at least three stories. Sometimes there is some bonus content, but I have only three this time. My first subject is very big subject. I don't know, Paul, if you might even have something in mind on this one, but there was a huge piece of news in SAP world. SAP and Deseg are kind of in sort of Mexican standoff right now over what's going on with cloud on premise and all of that.
Yeah.
So SAP just recently announced, I believe, increase in maintenance fees for the on-premise software. And
Yeah.
previously, Desect issued some statements where they kind of wagged finger at SAP for going to cloud, maybe just a little bit, just a nudge too fast, maybe for some of the customers, and also for their goal of offering innovation essentially in the cloud only. So
Yeah.
I guess from the DSAC perspective, it's like not only you're not giving us innovation, but you're asking us to pay more. And from
Yeah.
SAP perspective, it's like we want to go to the cloud, and I don't know. I guess they try to leverage whatever they can. So it's very interesting dynamic to watch, and DSAC has been very vocal user group among all others. So far, I think they have been kind of right, but I'm always curious to read different perspective on this.
Yeah.
And I think this article in particular is interesting. It's from Thomas Otter, who used to work at SAP, but now he is more into like venture capital business.
Mm.
But his article, I think it's the first one that kind of also wags finger a little bit at DSAG. And so he talks a little bit about history here, etc., his own point of view about this. And his conclusion is basically back to DSAG saying what they're doing, he's calling ERP nostalgia. And he's pointing that many of the SAP customers have already some of their systems, some of their pieces of their business in cloud. So
Yeah.
what's a big deal? So
Yeah.
there had been some response on his LinkedIn post about this from other DSAG members. So very interesting conversation. So I really, again, really always interesting to hear different points of view. I
Yeah.
I feel I might be biased a little bit to take any part on this, and no one really cares. I mean, what I think personally, neither DSAG nor SAP
Shouting into the void
yeah,
here, right? Yeah.
couldn't care less, but it does not prevent people like me from having their opinions regardless. So it's a our that's a present day. It's a situation that we live in. Everyone has an opinion, and we have social media and other means of expressing it, which I think is
This
great. So
is
yeah,
this is one of those things where I totally see, at least I don't know which side I fall in on agreeing with, but I totally see both perspectives here,
yeah,
right? I totally understand why customers would be like, "What are you doing to us?" And
yeah,
I totally see how SAP would say, "What are you doing to us? Everything that we
yeah,
want to do is not in that model."
yeah,
Right? So like I get it. Yeah. It's a
yeah.
SAP. There's I mean their their past success, it's probably kind of it's a ball and chain on them right now,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
from the SAP perspective, right? The
Hmm.
customer perspective is they see it the other way around, at least the ones who are not happy about that. I totally
Hmm.
get that too. So yeah, it's this like irresistible force meets an immovable object kind of
Yeah,
thing where what
yeah,
happens is they yield. Both of them give
yeah,
up
yeah. It's
stuff,
interesting,
right?
And there is, as you know, we at least I frequent Reddit. There is a sub that is called "Am I the asshole?" and where people post questions about some situations in the real life, and they're asking, "Did I behave like an asshole in this situation or not?" And then the whole internet is passing judgment or not on them. So I think if both SAP and Deseg would post in that sub, I think there would be a little bit of kind of asshole-ish behavior on
It'd
both
be
sides.
it would be in the parlance of that sub, it would be ETA,
Yeah,
which is everyone's the asshole here,
yeah,
right?
everyone's the asshole, exactly. I think both sides here kind of have some good points, but also
Yeah.
some points where you're like, okay, come on, you need to. So I think they both again need to come to some kind of
Yeah.
agreement on this, some kind of compromise. So it's a very, very heated situation
And
where like,
and
whew,
the final thing is that you were totally right. I also have a thing for this, but it's a different thing, so we'll see.
sweet, sweet.
Yeah.
So what, however this goes, get a big bucket of popcorn, folks. It's gonna be however this unravels, we will be just observing whatever happens. So my next subject, it's I don't really have a title, but it's something like ABAP and keeping it simple. I found this post. It's been a while. I've seen it. I thought about writing about this when it came out, but something more important, sorry, Lars,
Yeah.
happened at the time. But I decided to come back to this because I think it is very interesting, but also important. So what Lars is asking here, and he's using Excel functionality in ABAP, just as an example. I think you could take that and make the same point about many other functionalities.
Yeah.
So what he's saying, there are a lot of ways to do something like export data into Excel in ABAP. There is this open source project, there are classes, function modules, etc., etc. What he's asking about, that he wants just one of them. We really don't need 10 things doing the same thing. But he also wants this to be nice, and I like that he provides explanation of what he perceives as nice, and I kind of agree with all of his points. He says it works everywhere. Yes, definitely. And if some of you don't know, Lars is the basically person behind ABAP Git, and ABAP Git works in many different versions.
Yeah.
So he literally is a person who puts his words in the, I guess, in the right place. He stands behind what he says and delivers, but not only just makes proclamation like
we have a video with him somewhere on our channel.
Yeah. So definitely go and watch our interview with Lars. Very, very interesting person, and again makes great points. And just coincidentally, there was also another blog post also saying, for application logs, which is also another popular functionality in ABAP and SAP, there are also like 10 different classes, and none of them is nice if I take Lars's definition. And again and again, we can take many functionalities, and you will see the same things exactly. There are 10 different classes. None of them is really what Lars or I would call nice or even simple. So, like, why is that? Can we finally get something nice here? So I think, it's an interesting subject. And then subject number 3, I found this also very interesting article. It's this person, he decided to take ChatGPT on a journey with him to build actual application. And I like his point. He's saying that there are many examples where people are just taking, ChatGPT is awesome. I gave it like this super simple task, and it gave me such amazing results. But this is very simple. So it's, of course, you can get many simple things, get many great results from them, but real life and real applications are never like that. So I really loved that he took that ChatGPT and all this AI functionality, and he tried to go to kind of another level with it and design and build real application. It's pretty long article. If you're interested in subject, it's definitely worth reading in its entirety. And I especially loved his use case. So he's a professor, and he says that I read a lot of papers, like scientific papers or some kind of research papers. And when he reads a paper from specific year, he would like to hear a Taylor Swift song from the same year. So, and her main albums were released and like almost like every year, every other
Yeah.
year. And so he called this his project Swift Papers, which I think is just by itself like hilarious idea. So, and he describes his process in great detail. He doesn't leave anything behind the scenes or doesn't leave anything unsaid. He just really honestly shows his results. So I absolutely loved his article, really nice. And I'm not going to spoil the result for you, but of course, for a more complicated application, results were less than spectacular that everyone is getting for a small piece. And one of the items that he noted is, yes, it's all those tools are great at suggesting you a solution, but they don't always say, is this the best solution? And if not the best, then why or why not? Or they don't really lead you in the direction of a good solution. And there is also a blog on SAP community. It's been posted a while ago, but I found it. I think these two go great together, where Mateusz here is just talking about, let me give some examples what you can do with ChatGPT for SAP development. And when you look at this, you can see exactly the problem that other article is talking about. Yeah, it's great at generating some generic, very simplistic pieces of code that you can technically put into some non-cloud SAP system, and it's probably going to work. But is this should you really take this and just copy paste it and put it in production? Like, for example, this one takes function module, which really should not have been used for a really long time. Then in another example, which is maybe better example, and Mateusz also points out that some of those examples are not really working, like this one, for example. Let's see, where he's asking for select statement, and select is from the table that doesn't even exist in SAP. But even when guided to provide statement more accurately, I think everyone is missing the point that SAP does not even recommend selecting from the tables directly anymore. And if you're going into clean core and if you're serious about eventual transition to the cloud, then selection from the tables, it's a kind of a no-no. I'm not saying I do it still myself. If I'm in a pickle, I would do it in a pinch to get the result. But the point is, it's not mentioned anywhere here. It gives you a code, and again, which is not necessarily great code. You can see those old-timey declarations, etc. It's not really. It's going to give you a working code. It's most likely not going to give you its opinion or any input on how to make it better or whether you really should use this code in the first place. And it's difficult to know this thing if you're a beginner. So I suspect that there might be traps that people, especially beginners, might fall into when they start using those tools. I hope that the tools get better. Maybe people will wise up, but there are definitely, I think, some challenges to talk about here on this subject. So yeah, so these are my three pieces, and over to you, Paul.
Thank you. By the way, thank you for that, because surprisingly enough, you have selected a ChatGPT story, and I have not this time.
Oh, that's sort of
the world is upside down right now.
Yeah.
Right. I'm kind of saving some of that mojo for something else, but yeah. So let me share my thing here. Okay. So I just noticed, hadn't seen this before. SAP Insider is doing an SAP Tech conference shortly after SAP TechEd. Just like ASA is doing it shortly after TechEd in the US, right? So we've got SAP Insider stepping into the void in Europe, Middle East, Africa. ASUG stepping into that void in the Americas, especially the United States. Definitely a signal that, I imagine both of these organizations feel that there is an appetite, and I agree that there is an appetite for techies who have SAP as part of their knapsack of skills to come together and show stuff. It's just that like SAP doesn't necessarily believe that that's the case anymore, at least enough to support an in-person thing for it. And honestly, I'm not sure if I blame SAP for that or not. I think we've talked about this a little bit, right? Like there's probably, I mean, I can kind of imagine, especially for the first of these kinds of events this year, the attendance will probably not be exactly the same as SAP Tech Ed would be in those places. And so there's like a market experiment going on of like, essentially like in the Americas, in the US, what is the true appetite for this? My appetite's high, yours is, and we know people whose are. Is that true across the board in the US and the Americas? Is that true across the board in Europe, Middle East, Africa, right? Like, what's the answer? I don't know, but we're going to find out because people are springing up to fill that void, right? So very, very curious to see. So I want to write about this. Like, I think part of what's interesting to me is that because orgs that are not SAP are now hosting these events, what's the flavoring going to be? What's the seasoning going to be? How's it going to be different than when SAP was hosting these events? Right? Because ASUG and SAP Insider have slightly different goals or largely different goals than SAP itself.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I am beyond curious to see what the detailed agendas look like, what the keynote speakers and stuff like that looks like. It's like, it's a whole new world.
Yeah.
And I'm frankly excited to see what's going on there.
Yeah. Yes. Sorry, I'm personally still grieving over not having Tech Ed in the US this year in person. But I think there is a silver linings here, definitely, because Tech Eds have also been turning into a little bit of marketing event for SAP. And as you said, this organizer, they have nothing to sell you, basically. So I hope that those might actually be in that area much better events than before, because there will not be marketing. I think that people will show up for those honest conversations, like customer to customer or partner to partner, where we can talk briefly and freely about our experiences and our kind of share information and knowledge, etc., without SAP kind of being present there behind our shoulder all the time. So that would be very interesting.
Along the borders of my open source enterprise software stuff, I discovered another open source enterprise ERP. So I'm gonna pile on here and figure out what it's all about, right? Because look at that. There's a conference about this thing, right? It's in Mumbai, but it's a legit conference, right? There are solutions and services and partners, and like it's a real thing. You know what I mean? So like I'm fascinated by just growing. So in my job, I was learning about some details of what implementations look like for things that are not SAP. And it's an enormously different universe out there when your thing, and the word implementation means something vastly, hugely, enormously different if the thing you're implementing is not SAP ERP. And so seeing that happen, and then seeing how the open source community is like continuing to have things out there, I am learning so much when I go read these things. And people are dropping comments on our posts that talk about the open source things. Like I think there's general interest out there about this stuff. So I find it fascinating. And so we'll get some screenshots and some deeper dive thoughts on it when I put it out there. So my final story is, like I said, dovetails with yours. And that is ASUG put out a blog post saying, we will clarify and communicate SAP's cloud strategy for our community, which to me is I mean, hey, that's a good thing from the standpoint of the not SAP players in the room. What I mean by that is clearly there is still, even beyond DSAG, because this is America's, right? Even beyond DSAG, clearly ASUG has heard, sorry, what's this going on now? Innovation's
Yeah.
gonna, I can't have that anymore
Hold on a
because I'm
second.
on
Yeah.
and it costs more for this. Like, there is a real need for clear, direct communication. And whether it's ASUG or somebody else, in this case it's ASUG, but there's enough room that, like, I would encourage anybody who learns more about this stuff to post publicly about it, because so it just seems like so many people are like, WTF this, right? And I feel like it's one of those things where you just need more clarity. You just need more communication. You just need more, like, back and forth discussions about this so that everyone kind of gets everybody else's perspective here. Because I think ASUG and whoever else stepping into that void is a signal that there should be better communication about this stuff. You know what I mean? So I'm going to go through the details of this and kind of look at some of the pieces. And then you and I will probably have to talk about, are we overlapping too much on this thing? And maybe I can dig into my backlog and do something else here too. But there's something going on here, you know? Yeah. So those are my potential thoughts here for this upcoming Nerdletter. Everyone, I guess that's the end of this Nerdletter Talk episode. Please comment, like, share, drop us an email, drop us a comment, whatever, and we'd love to engage with you and hopefully talk to you soon. Bye, guys.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.